I think all West Ham fans knew that this summer would be a big shake-up of the squad, but perhaps that's just got a little bit bigger with the news that 4 senior players will be released at the end of their contracts in June. Now, before I talk about that, I just want to say a massive thank you to those that have liked and commented on my video so far. And if you could do the same on this one, it'd be even better. So cheers for that. So these 4 players, just wanted to give my opinion really. No sort of further news on that basis, but just give my opinion on those 4 players and also where that leaves Michail Antonio. So the 4 players obviously being Vladimir Soucek, Aaron Creswell, Lucas Fabianski and Danny Ings. And I don't think any of them are particularly surprising that they will be leaving the club. Maybe there was a more of a question mark over 2 of them, which I'll come on to. But I think obviously all 4 players are of a certain age, definitely senior players within the squad. And given the fact that the club clearly want to bring the average age down, it's no surprise that they will be let go. I just think the only surprising thing is the timing of the announcement. A few days before we play Manchester United in the league. And yeah, still a few games to go with the rest of the season. It just seemed to come out of nowhere a little bit. So that's my only surprise with the actual news. But you certainly won't see me shedding any tears for any of those players. That's not to disrespect what they've done for the club and their time at the club, certainly for a few of them. But I think any player, bar Bowen, Aaron Wan-Bissaka and Ollie Scarles, leaving this summer, I certainly won't be losing any sleep over, just because this squad is in major need of a shake-up, and we just need a fresh start, don't we? I think all West Ham fans would agree with that. And there's still a lot of quality within the squad, but for many reasons it's just not working. So I'm certainly not going to be, like I say, losing any sleep on those 4 players. I think the timing is probably right on all of those, but I will come on to those individually. Like I say, 2 of them I think are very expected and not a surprise at all. But I think 2 of them probably was a bigger decision for the club. So the 2 that I think we all would have guessed, or not even guessed, but anticipated, were Danny Ings and Vladimir Soucek. Now, Ings is obviously, because he's at a certain age, he has a terrible injury record. Although it's not been as bad at West Ham, he's on big wages and he just has a real lack of pace. And he has done since he joined a couple of years ago. So I think, it's not really worked out, that transfer, as many West Ham striker transfers have not. And it was a surprise when he got brought to the club in many ways, because we were with David Moyes, and we were playing a low block, counter-attacking football, which means your striker is invariably going to be in the centre circle for most of the game, which means they need to run the channels, like we've seen from Michail Antonio over the years. And it was quite clear, given day one of Danny Ings' West Ham career, he couldn't run anymore. He just couldn't run. And I think Aston Villa getting him off the wage bill and getting, I think it was about 15 million for him, they would have, they'd have snapped their hands off for that. So I don't think that's a surprise. I think that's the timing's right on that one. And Soufal is more off the pitch, really. I think if he didn't say what he said about the stuff in January and the transfer news in January, then he might have got another 1-year deal. I'm not too sure, but I don't think he's a terrible number 2 as a backup. And given the season Aaron Wan-Bissaka has had for the club and the amount of minutes that Wan-Bissaka has played, I don't think Soufal would be the worst number 2, even for next season. He is obviously of a certain age. He lacks pace. Yeah, he's certainly not getting any better as a player, but we're not in Europe next season. You would hope that Aaron Wan-Bissaka will play most of the games, and therefore I don't think needing to go out and buy another right back would have been top of our list had Soufal not come out with what he said, I think, just after January. And I think that's accelerated the move to move him on. He might have been moved on anyway, to be fair. But I think the 2 bigger decisions would have been around Aaron Creswell and Lucas Fabianski. Fabianski, just because I think whenever you have a number 2 goalkeeper, it's always difficult to anticipate the right time to move them on, because they're a number 2. They shouldn't be playing that often. And they're always going to be of a certain age, normally, unless you have a young goalkeeper. And I think he has been a great servant for the club. And let's get it right. I think it's the right time for him to leave. I do think he doesn't have a presence in goal. I don't think he ever particularly did. I don't think he's a commanding figure in goal. But I think as he's got older, he's certainly become more, less of a physical presence. I just see balls going past him more often. And I do think it's the right time. But I think for £7 million, I think it was from Swansea. I think it was a fantastic signing. He's done brilliant for the club, particularly in his first few seasons. And I think now is the right time. It just means, and this is why I think it's a bigger decision, is that we now need to go out and buy a goalkeeper, which we might have done anyway because of the whole sort of Areola situation. But we now definitely need a number two. I don't see Areola being a number two. So that almost, in my mind, solidifies the fact that Graham Potter is happy with Areola as number one next season, and will just bring in a number two. I might be wrong with that, but I can't see us spending big on a goalkeeper to then battle it out with Areola. I think they'd have just sold Areola, in which case they'd have kept Fabianski, if you get what I mean. So, yeah, I think that, in my mind, has definitely solidified that. And then Aaron Creswell, obviously he has been a great servant. Whatever you think of Aaron Creswell as defender, I think he has been a brilliant signing for less than £5 million from Ipswich. And I think his first season was fantastic, and his second season was pretty good as well. And over the years, he's potentially deteriorated in terms of his performances. He's always had an issue physically to cope with the strongest and fastest of wingers in the Premier League. He's definitely been found wanting on a few times defensively. But all in all, I think he has been a very good signing, a very good servant for the club. So I think that was probably the biggest question of the four, whether he would get a one-year deal, just because obviously formation-wise, we've seen Graham Potter opt for a five at the back a lot this season. And he has fitted in quite well with that as like a left-sided centre-back to sort of give us a little bit more balance. He's obviously very neat and tidy on the ball. And I think he's at least experienced enough to know where he should be defensively, if not found a little bit wanting, like I say, physically against the better strikers or wingers. So I think there would have been a question mark over that one. Again, in my personal opinion, I do think it's the right time. I think he's been a great servant, but I think we need to shake it up now. We need to bring youth into the squad. We need to buy physical players, good physical players with pace, but all around the pitch really, but particularly in defence. And yeah, I think if you feel like we're going to go to a back four, which again, I think this news suggests that Graham Potter is more often than not next season going to go to a back four. And then you've got obviously Ollie Scholes and Emerson at left back, so I don't think Cresswell would have been needed there. And then centre halves, we've obviously got Kilman and Todibo, who will 100% be staying, you would have thought. And then Mavropanos again, possibly staying. And then Aguerd coming back, which again, I think we'll probably let him go and sort of get the money in. But it wouldn't surprise me if he stayed. So you've already got four centre-backs on the books at least that Aaron Creswell would obviously have to battle it with, and I don't see him really having a place in a back four anyway. I don't think he's quick enough for a left back, and I don't think he's obviously strong or tall enough for a centre half in a back four. So yeah, I don't think, like I say, any of them are particularly surprising, but I think two decisions would have had to be made around Creswell and Fabianski, and I just think maybe they suggest that Graham Potter, like I say, is going to move to a back four. He's happy with Areola as a goalkeeper, and that we're going to look at other areas of the squad instead of buying a goalkeeper. Like I think Mark mentioned, James Trafford. I think Kelleher at Liverpool's been talked about. I don't see that happening now. Fabianski's going, which is weird because you think, well, one goalkeeper's going out, so one could come in surely. But I don't see us signing a goalkeeper to battle it out with Areola. I think Areola would have been the one to go, and then Fabianski would have been the number two. But again, I could be wrong on that. That could be something that the club are planning. So I do think though that three of the four will need replacing. Like I say, we will now need to go and get a backup goalkeeper. We'll obviously need a backup right back. You can't just have Wan-Bissaka as the only recognisable right back all season. And Aaron Cresswell as well. I think whether we go to a back five or a back four next season, we will need another defensive player, particularly if Aguerd is sold, which I expect him to be. So three of the four will need to be replaced. Danny Ings, we need at least two strikers anyway, in my opinion. So I don't think that's changed. I think if Ings would have stayed, we'd have still needed two, and if he goes, we still need two. So I don't think that's changed anything. And I think just getting his wages off the books is a bit of a relief. So yeah, those are my thoughts on those four players. I think it makes sense for pretty much all of them. I'm certainly not going to be shedding any tears for any of them. I think Fabianski and Creswell particularly, and Soucek as well, actually, have been great servants for the club and should be respected and hopefully given the send-off that they deserve. And maybe that's why this news has come out now. But yeah, I think it's time to rebuild the squad with youth, get some young players through the door, and yeah, just freshen everything up and give this squad a lot more pace and physicality that it desperately needs. And then the last question is where this leaves Michail Antonio. There's obviously been a few sort of rumours going around, one of which being I've seen some suggestions on social media that he's perhaps this means that he's going to get some sort of sympathy deal, like a 1-year deal, just to get him through the sort of rehab and getting back to some sort of fitness. I don't see that. I mean, you're talking about an owner that wouldn't let Avram Grant on the team bus after being sacked when we got relegated. You're talking about an owner that didn't give James Collins a decent chance to say goodbye and have a good send off for a player that gave so much for the club. You're talking about an owner, that didn't treat Julian Lopetegui with the respect he probably deserves, especially given the passing of his father. So I don't think compassion is top of David Sullivan's priorities. I think money is probably number one, and I think we all know that. So, yeah, I don't think it's that. It could be. This is just my personal opinion. Again, I've got no further insight on that. It's just my opinion. I don't see it being a sympathy deal. I think they probably just haven't made their mind up. And Graham Potter alluded to that in his press conference, saying that he's seeing how he progresses. It's quite a specific case with Michail Antonio. It's obviously a very unusual injury, if you like, an occurrence. So I think they're just waiting to see what kind of fitness he can get back to, and then perhaps offering him a 1-year deal. I think that's the most likely, or just saying and they've not got long, but this time next month, do you know what, this doesn't seem to be working. He doesn't seem to be getting any fitness back. Maybe we will let him go, but it will be a sort of announcement of just Antonio, because obviously of what he's done for the club. And again, he's been an amazing signing at $7.5 million. I think he was from Nottingham Forest. He's been a fantastic servant. Again, whatever you think of him as a player and his sort of technical ability, the fact that he's our Premier League all-time goal scorer, that what he's done up front, particularly under David Moyes, is it's been brilliant. I don't think you can knock that. And I do think, again, it's the right time to let him go. My opinion is that he should leave this summer. I think it's an opportunity, if I can say that. But yeah, he's obviously, I think he's 35, 36 now, isn't he? I just don't see him coming back to any kind of level that he did before. And I think it's going to be a different West Ham squad now, and a different West Ham way of playing, hopefully. And I just don't know if that will still suit him. Nicholas Fulkrug potentially will be staying this summer, and obviously I'm hoping that we bring in a striker that can play. I know that is very optimistic that we could actually sign a striker that can start most games. So I don't know where that would leave Antonio. Maybe that's what Graham Potter sees him as, like a third striker of a three, and coming in just to bully a couple of defenders in the last sort of 10, 15 minutes of a game. I can see that, but in my mind, this is the right time to let him go. Definitely, again, give him a massive send-off, because he has been a great servant for the club and deserves. I think he'll get a testimonial in terms of the 10-year thing. I think he joined in the summer of 2015, so I think he would be due a testimonial. Hopefully he gets one. And that's just my personal opinion on those players, but I could be completely wrong in terms of what I think will happen. But yeah, I think whatever the case, I think it shows again another example that it is a big summer ahead, and hopefully more promising times with some younger players in this squad. Up the Hammers.